Welcome back. As government and Islamic courts factions fight it out for dominance of the country, ordinary Somalis face famine, starvation and neglect. Escaping their homes in their thousands, whole neighbourhoods of the capital Mogadishu are said to be empty. Hugo McPherson has more on the crisis.
Somalia's humanitarian crisis. Somalia is now one of the most dangerous countries in the world.
Well, the United Nations says this is the worst humanitarian crisis in Africa at the moment. Basically, there are more than 1 million displaced people in Somalia, 600,000 of which have fled the capital Mogadishu because of fighting this year.
1 in 5 Somalis is literally starving to death. But refugees say it's not just food they desperately need.
I would like to die in a desert place where I can only get water, because what I need is peace and stability. What I don't want, I don't need food. I need peace. And if there's no peace in Somalia, I wouldn't like to go to Somalia.
An estimated 1 million people have left to escape the fighting. In this year alone, 6,000 have died in the crossfire. Even aid agencies are struggling to survive in these conditions. The World Food Programme had to abandon their Somali HQ in October. Lawlessness, piracy and red tape are hampering efforts to reach those who are suffering and on the move.
For 17 years we have been in chaos with fighting and displacement. Now we are in the worst situation in our country. We are appealing to the world to help orphans and the disabled people who have been maimed by bullets. Wherever you are, brothers in the world, we are calling on you to help by saving our lives.
But vital aid may not reach these people in time. And certainly not while Somalia remains one of the most dangerous places on earth.
And we're still joined by our guests in London, Mohammed Guri, the chairman of Somalia Concern Group and Deputy Foreign Relations of Alliance for Reliberation of Somalia. And joining us now from Nairobi, Eric Laroche, a senior UN humanitarian coordinator, as well as designated official for security of the UN system in Somalia. And also in London, Ahmed Samatan, international studies professor and dean of the Institute for Global Citizenship at Macalester College in Minnesota. Mr. Laroche, I know that you've witnessed all this firsthand, and looking at those devastating images, how is it that Somalia has been allowed to reach this point?
Well, this is probably the worst situation that in the history of Somalia. Never ever before have you seen so many people on the move, and never ever before also we were prevented to reach these people. As you said, Somalia is probably one of the worst places on earth, in fact, to work as humanitarian workers. It is very, very dangerous, and this is the reason why we have so many problems to reach the people. There are many other reasons why we cannot reach the people, I must say. Sometimes we are prevented to reach the people, and we are prevented by all parts to the conflict, I must say. And, but you know, what is difficult to accept is that the authorities that represent the transitional federal government still are imposing taxes on and put barriers on the move of our supplies. So it is very difficult not only for us as human beings to be there, because if you look at the number of people that have been injured or killed, it's quite high, but also because we are prevented really to reach these people. So in addition to that, we have been harassed, I would say, administratively, and we've been criticized of feeding the terrorists, which is absolutely wrong. Everyone knows that one of the principles of humanitarian action, the first one is to reach the people. This is what we call humanitarian imperative. We have to be there. We have to be by the people, helping them. We have to protect them by presence. Very, very difficult to achieve in Somalia. Number two, we have to be neutral and be perceived as being neutral. It is very difficult to be seen as neutral in Somalia because we've been there for so many years, and as you were saying, in the last 16 to 17 years, we have been in a crisis. And number three, we have to be seen as impartial. And I must say that in the last 2 years, I've been criticized because I was going to the ICU when the Islamic court was took over Mogadishu. And I was criticized then because by the Islamists because I was too close to the transitional federal government. And then I was criticized also by the international community for not doing enough. I think it is very difficult to be at the center of the response and being prevented to respond. I think the response nowadays is much better than it was 2 months ago. It's too late, it's not enough, we need much more than that. But we don't have the resources that are necessary to respond properly. Why? Because if you look at the number of international NGOs that are willing to go to Somalia, there are very few. There are very few, and most of them have other obligation in other countries of Africa. It is very difficult also to mobilize the entire community, be it the media to start with. Number two, the donors, the international community. It is difficult to mobilize the humanitarian crowd because all these people have a sense of fatigue. And this has to change. We need a solution for Somalia. It cannot continue like this. We are probably reaching the dip, the bottom of where we can go. And I think there is only one way, which is to go up. For that, we need to have a huge mobilization. And I think what the special representative of the Secretary General said on Monday at the Security Council is a hope that is, well, it's a hope, or in fact it's a fork in the path. You have two or three choices. If you don't get it right, then the situation is going to be even worse.
Mr. Giri, while the international community has dithered, wondering how it should deal with this situation, what are your supporters on the ground saying? I know when I last spoke to you, you said that many people were living in trees, that they have no hope.
Yes, absolutely. Many people are camping between Mogadishu and Afgoye, which is a 30-kilometer stretch. Some are without shelters, others are renting trees, and many are displaced every day because the displacement is a continuous process. Anytime the resistance attacks the Ethiopian troops retaliate, attacking in residential areas. Yesterday, the day before today, they attacked the Bakara market. So the displacement continues, and the people fleeing from Mogadishu and going other parts of the country continue. That's why people are dying now. Children are dying. They are malnutrition. Those who are wounded do not get the needed needed medical attention. 75 hospitals which existed prior to the Ethiopian invasion, only today 2 are functioning. So you can imagine the magnitude of the problem that the people in Mogadishu are facing today. What we're hearing from the ground is that the resistance is willing and ready to work with 8 donors who are willing to assist the people. They have assisted and they are continuing to assist, and they're also providing themselves some medical and food to the most destitute people who are camping between Mogadishu and Afgoye today.
Okay, let me jump in there. Mr. Laroche, Ban Ki-moon from the UN said that it was almost too dangerous to send peacekeepers there. Peacekeepers have promised that they would go in. We're still waiting to see them. Do you think that's true? Mr. Laroche.
Oh, sorry. What I know is, I tell you that for the humanitarian community, I don't know for any mission, but I can tell you that for the humanitarian community, it is the worst place in the world to work in. And that is recognized not by us, it is recognized by all the institutes that work on these affairs. So one should not be surprised. I think it is, Mogadishu in particular and in Somalia obviously has a legacy of violence. And I think people, when you see the type of atrocity and barbarism in which people are fighting and treating each other, and particularly the corpse of their enemies, it says a lot on the atmosphere in Mogadishu. You see, all the parties have to be blamed. And unfortunately, even the EU mission has been targeted, and I think this is not tolerable. It means that people have no interest in having peace, and probably there are many interests that are targeted, in fact, preventing peace to happen and preventing the humanitarian response to happen.
Okay, let me quickly bring in Mr. Samatar there. How does the stance taken by Sweden play into this problem? They've just ruled that failed asylum seekers from the Somali capital can be sent back as there is no armed conflict there.
Well, that's a joke, isn't it? I mean, everybody knows that the Mogadishu is in flames. So anybody who says that people could be sent back to Somalia or Mogadishu, particularly because there are no wars, just doesn't know what's going on. But if I might add a few points to the discussion, first of all, I think it is important to note that the international community, particularly at the level of governments, and their involvement, whether it's the United Kingdom or whether it's the Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia or whether it is the United States, the international government system has failed the Somali people. And their concerns, from my perspective, has been no more than crocodile tears. There are, of course, non-governmental organizations that have tried to get aid to the Somalis who are caught up in this ugly drama, who are hungry and who are sick and who are vulnerable. But the international community really hasn't made the kind of a serious attempt to deal with the Somali condition. And if you look at the people who, for example, run the offices that are responsible for Somalia at the places like the European Union and other places, they are junior, rather ignorant people who have no understanding of what the Somali society has been going through, the complexity of its history, and the challenge of the questions that confronted. Somalia needs a very high level involvement from the international community with the resources to back that up and the kind of intensity so that the Somalis will be able to produce competent and legitimate leaders that will take them forward out of this mess.
Something that Somalia so desperately needs. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We're going to leave it there and leave our guests in London, Mohammed Guri, and in Nairobi, Eric Laroche, back in London, Ahmed Samatar. And thank you so much for joining us as always on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now and thanks for watching.